People often ask the question, do ghosts actually exist? But from the knowledge that we get from the ancient yoga texts, the existence of ghosts and higher living entities living on a subtle platform is actually commonplace knowledge. So instead of answering the question, do ghosts actually exist, I'm going to explain to you what a ghost actually is. And we're going to do that right now. Hello and welcome to the Happy Jiva channel, where we bring to you knowledge, practical application, and inspiration from the yoga text. My name is Nrsimha, and if you're new to our channel, please do go ahead and subscribe. Okay, so to answer this question, first of all, you have to understand what your identity is. I want you to understand that you are not this physical body that you currently have. Practically 99.9% of the people in this world are under the impression that they are their physical body. But the yoga texts explain that this physical body is just a temporary designation that you have. It's just a temporary covering. And even though people may be religious or people may be spiritual, and they may have the understanding, the theoretical understanding, that they're not their physical body, but they may be their mind or they may be their soul, but it's very rare to come across a person who's actually living their day-to-day life understanding that they're not the body, but there's something higher. So I'm gonna read to you guys two shlokas, we call them, which are like verses in the ancient Sanskrit language from yoga's prime text. It's called the Bhagavad-Gita. You probably heard of it. It's a really epic conversation between Krishna, who's the personification of unlimited opulences, speaking to his friend and his disciple Arjuna, who's a great warrior in a big battlefield about 5,000 years ago. So this shloka, this Sanskrit shloka, comes from the second chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, text 13. There the translation is, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So this verse is telling us how the physical body is changing, but inside we still are the same person. And that person actually gets a different gross body, a different physical body after the death of the present physical body. The second shloka also comes from the second chapter, but it's text 22 of the second chapter. And there the translation, this is a really nice translation. It says, as a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Okay, so the yoga text explained that we have three bodies in total. The first body is your outermost body. That's your physical gross body. And that's made up of different elements, in fact, 5 elements in total. The most grossest of these elements is the earth element, and we get more and more subtle in progression. After earth, there's water inside your body, inside your physical body. Then there's fire, then there's air, and there's an element called ether. So the physical body is the body which is tangible and perceivable to your external senses. It's the body that you can see, touch, feel, hear. It's the body that takes birth, it maintains itself for some period of time, and then it gradually dwindles and it dies. Now, the next body you have is your mental body or your subtle body, and that has 3 primary constituents to it. It has your mind, it has your intelligence, and it has the false ego. Now, picture this example. Let's say if you're a parent, you have a child, and you're pushing your child in a stroller or in a pram, in a trolley down a toy store, down an aisle in a toy store, and your child is saying, I want this toy, I want that toy, I don't want this, I want that. Your mind is like that little kid. It's simply accepting something and it's rejecting something. Now your intelligence is like the parent. The parent is telling the child, okay, you can take this toy for now because it's cheaper or it's on sale, but this toy you have to save up, you can't take it now. So your intelligence is sort of like the parent. It tells your mind what to accept and what to reject. Now, the false ego is something I'll come back to, but within your mental body, you have another body. That's your core body. That's your conscious body or your spiritual body. And that's made up also of 3 elements, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Or in other words, eternality, knowledge, and bliss. It's always seeking pleasure and happiness. That's why everyone has a core spiritual body. Everyone is seeking more of a permanent existence. They're seeking knowledge in different things, and everyone is ultimately seeking happiness in life. Now, the false ego, which is part of your subtle body, is that type of an element which makes your conscious body think that it is the subtle body and it is the physical body. Say, for example, I'm wearing this t-shirt. Now, I'm not this t-shirt. It's a covering for my body. The false ego is that element within the subtle body which would make me think that I am this t-shirt. I'm not the person wearing the t-shirt. That's what the false ego is. It makes you think that you're not the conscious body, you're not the soul, but that you're your mind or you're your gross body, which are both temporary designations. Now, the yoga texts explain that the ghostly existence it's actually not as fun as you might think it is, because you still have a mind. In other words, you still have material desires. You want relationships, physical relationships with people. You want to eat something, you want to drink something, you feel thirsty, you feel hungry. But because you don't have a gross physical body to fulfill those desires, you're suffering in that mental state. You're suffering in that subtle physical state. So what is a ghost? A ghost is essentially a human being who has died, or in other words, their gross physical outer body has shed off. It's passed away. It doesn't work anymore. But that person is still existing within their subtle body and their spiritual conscious body. Now, to understand this philosophical point of view presented by the yoga texts, we have to understand that our mind and our consciousness can exist separately and independently from our physical body. And in other words, our consciousness and our mind are not products of the physical body, but rather our physical body is more like a vessel or a vehicle for our mind and for our consciousness. Now, there's two more shlokas that I want to read out again. One of them is from the Bhagavad-Gita, and the other one is from the graduate study to the Bhagavad-Gita. It's called the Srimad Bhagavatam, and they both sort of pertain to what we're talking about. This is text 61, or shloka 61 from the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. And here, Krishna, the master of yoga and meditation, is speaking to his disciple Arjuna, and he's saying, "The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy." So the yoga texts present the idea that our physical body is a machine. It's a vehicle for our soul, for our mind. So the shloka from the Srimad Bhagavatam, it states that the personality of Godhead said, "Under the supervision of the Supreme Lord, according to the result of his work, the living entity, the soul, is made to enter into the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body." So when we pass away, when we die, our physical body is destroyed, but we still exist in that subtle form, in that conscious form. We still have the two bodies which exist independently of the physical body. Now, when you take your next birth, that mind, that subtle body and that spiritual body, if you're going to take another material birth, it actually enters through the particle of a father's semen into the womb of another mother, and then you take another physical birth again. You get a different type of physical body. Now, a ghost is that person who hasn't yet done that. They're still existing in that subtle state. And that perhaps gives us some indication why ghosts like to possess people, so that they can fulfill their desires. So how does one actually become a ghost? Well, the yoga wisdom actually gives us several reasons how a person can actually become a ghost in their next life. But I'm going to outline two primary reasons how one can become a ghost. The first one is intense material attachment. The yoga wisdom is always encouraging us to detach ourselves from material things, because we're not the body and we're not our mind. Again, they're two very temporary designations. We're actually the more eternal spiritual body, the eternal spiritual body. Now, when you're really intensely materially attached to something, that might be your house, it might be your relatives, it might be your car, it might be your own physical body, which is temporary. then after death it's very difficult for the mind and for the soul to detach itself from its physical hankerings and attachments. And for a certain period of time, it's very likely that that human being will exist in that ghostly state of existence. Now, the second reason, and I know it can be a bit of a sensitive issue, but I feel that it needs to be said so that we can understand better and that we can work towards a solution. And the second reason is the forceful termination of the gross physical body, or suicide. Now, we're existing as spirit souls within a particular type of gross physical body because of the karma, because of the activities we performed previously. Now, let's say if you're supposed to live as a human being or being embodied within the human body for, let's say, a period of 80 years, according to your karma. But after 40 years of life, you actually committed suicide. You killed your physical body. Now, according to the laws of nature, according to the laws of karma, you won't get another physical body until your term of 80 years that you're supposed to live within that human body. So that means if you kill yourself after 40 years of time, 40 years period, then for the next 40 years you would have to live within a ghostly body until nature actually creates another physical body for you. So the yoga texts do give us a clear understanding of the existence of ghosts, and they actually explain to us what ghosts actually are. And I've explained this to you on a really brief, on a very high level. I could go into more detail as well. But the other thing, what I want you to understand is that these three bodies that we have, the spiritual body or the conscious body, the subtle body or the mental body, and the outer gross physical body, have a relationship with each other. Our gross body exists because the subtle body and the spiritual body exists. And our subtle body exists because our spiritual body exists. Ultimately, our real identity is that we're the spiritual body. We're eternal, we're full of knowledge, and we're full of bliss. And these two bodies we take on to fulfill our material desires within the material sphere. So I hope that sheds a bit more light on the issue, and it gives you much more of a clear understanding about this particular topic. And if you have any further questions, please do comment below or email us at info@thehappyjiva.com. Please stay tuned for more of our videos and also subscribe to our channel. Thank you. See you next time.